To perform the squat, it's important to first understand that neither one of us are built the same. We're all uniquely different. Our joint structure, our past injuries, and our current range of motion are all going to dictate how well we move. Now, to perform your squat, what we're looking for basically is to try and achieve the most depth possible while maintaining the integrity of the movement. Now, what I mean by that basically is we're trying to keep the spine relatively fixed while we're trying to get as much flexion from the ankles, the knees, and the hips. Now, flexion basically means we're trying to close a joint. So think about the bicep here, and at the elbow joint, we're closing that joint, okay? So our foot position and how much depth we have, as mentioned, will vastly change from person to person. Then we also need to take into consideration what our actual goals are. If we're trying to develop the front of the thighs more, if we're trying to improve knee flexion, if we're trying to get in more to the glutes, all these different things will come into play. But let's first establish a good position. So what we like to do is start from the ground up. So we'll look at the feet. Foot position will change again based on your goal and based on how well you move, okay? Now, we can look to improve your range as time goes on, but if we're looking at this present moment, we have to pick the position that matches your goal and matches your capabilities. So once we've established a good foot position, you can have the toes turned out a slight touch, and then we're looking to try and get grounded or rooted into the floor. Now, I like to say have 3 points of contact. So big toe, the pinky, and the heel. Once you've got that, I want you to create tension and grip the ground. And you should notice that there is a degree of tension moving up the lower limbs and into the glutes, basically, all right? So let's show you from the side. Now, if you're new to squatting, I like to use your arms as a counterbalance. So if you just bring them up in front, and if you notice the shoulders start to elevate, let's take them away from the ears a little touch. What we want to do next is create some tension through the abdominals. And then as you start to descend, just take a deep breath in, and then break at the hips. And then what I like to do is try and shift your knees as far forward as they possibly can go. And you want to keep your knees tracking over your second to fourth toe. Keep the chest pointing forward, keep a slight extension at the neck, and look ahead. And then to come back up, push through the floor, squeezing your thighs and engaging your glutes. Repeat. So try and get as much flexion at the knees and at the hips as you possibly can. So at the bottom, I'm actually contracting in at the hips as well. Push back up. Maintain your 3 points of contact. And go as low as you possibly can. Keep the integrity of the spine so it's fixed throughout. And that's a basis of the air squat. Now, if we get more into goal specific, say we're looking to improve knee flexion, say we have some weakness through the quads and we find it hard to bend at the knees and at the hips, and we're traveling this way. What we can do is we can elevate the heels a little touch just to get you a little bit more vertical. Now, we have the slant board here. What you can also use is a 1 to 2 inch heel wedge. So if we go onto the slant board, you'll notice once I start to move, the position of the spine now. So this is forcing us into more knee flexion, and it's allowing us to get more into the quadriceps and back up. Back up. So remember, knees are going over the second to fourth toe. So the knees are going forward, the hips are going down, chest is pointing forward. Okay? So knees forward, hips low, chest forward. Now, if you want to make your squat a little bit more glute dominant, a lot of people would move into a wider stance for a more glute dominant squat, which is incorrect. What we need to look at is how much knee flexion and hip flexion we're getting hip flexion we're getting basically. So if we are doing a squat position and we're trying to make it a little bit more emphasis on the glutes, then all the same principles would apply, but notice my hip angle this time. So a bit less through the thighs and more into the glutes. Even if I take a narrower stance, you notice the knee and hip angle are slightly different. And again, that's going to change from person to person and how you're structured and what range of motion you currently have. Now, let's regress those and say we really find it hard to actually get stable in the air squat. You can start with a chair and give yourself somewhere to aim for. So again, all the same principles as previous. And then you can perform a touch and go. And you can change the height if you have the availability to do so, obviously. Then you can go a little bit higher and you can start to bring that down as you start to progress. So that's just a slight introduction into how to perform a squat here at JP's Gym.